My wife cheated with my best friend, and after I caught them, she filed for divorce claiming I stole $200, $0 from our joint account, only to later find out she was secretly selling our house for $500, $0 behind my back. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Emily, turned out to be nothing like the woman I married. I mean, I knew she had a sharp tongue and a bitchy streak, but I always figured that was just her personality. We'd been together for over 10 years, and at first everything seemed perfect, or at least close enough. We had a nice house, decent jobs, and a kid on the way. I thought I was the luckiest guy alive, honestly, but the signs started creeping in slowly. Little things. She'd be on her phone more often than usual, hiding her screen when I walked into the room. She'd get defensive if I asked about her plans or who she was texting. And then there was the money. I noticed some odd transactions, small amounts here and there, but I dismissed them as her buying gifts or small luxuries. Still, I kept an eye on the bank account just in case. I never suspected anything serious until the day I walked into the bedroom and saw her phone open on the bed with a message from some guy I didn't recognize. That was the moment everything changed. I remember standing there, heart pounding, trying to process what I was seeing. It was a text exchange that made my stomach drop. She was telling him how much she missed him, how she loved the way he made her feel, how she couldn't wait to see him again. I read the messages twice, then 3 times, trying to convince myself it was a mistake, but there was no denying it. My wife, the woman I trusted with everything, was cheating on me with my best friend, Jake. The shock was numbing. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. For a second I just stood there, not knowing what to do or say. My mind raced through every moment of our life together, every laugh, every argument, every quiet night in bed. How long had this been going on? Was I blind? Did I miss the signs? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. Emily was still sitting on the couch when I found the messages, and she looked up at me with her usual bitchy smirk, like she knew I was onto her but didn't care. I confronted her right then and there. I threw the phone at her and she caught it with that typical sneer, trying to act innocent. She told me it was just a fling, that she didn't mean anything, that she was stressed out and it was just sex, nothing serious. She lied so easily, like she'd rehearsed it 100 times. I could see the false tears in her eyes, the way she tried to make me feel guilty for catching her. But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. I felt the world tilt. All the trust I'd built up over the years crumbled in an instant. I was angry, so angry I could barely breathe. But beneath that there was a deep pain, feeling I couldn't quite shake. How could she do this to me, to us? I'd given her everything, my love, my loyalty, my money, and she threw it all away for some meaningless sex with Jake. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the betrayal, the lies, the way she made a fool out of me in my own house. That night everything changed. I stayed up till dawn, trying to process what I'd learned. I started digging into our finances, trying to understand how she was hiding things from me. That's when I found out she'd been selling our house behind my back for months. I had no idea she was planning to leave, let alone sell the place for $500, $0 without telling me. She'd been secretly talking to real estate agents, staging the house, and I had no clue. All I knew was that my wife, the woman I thought I knew, had been lying to my face for months. I knew I had to make a decision. But first, I had to figure out what to do about her. I was furious, hurt, and feeling so stupid for trusting her. I couldn't believe I'd let her get away with so much. I felt like a fool, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't let her control the narrative anymore. I had to get my revenge, even if it meant tearing everything down first. Because if there's one thing I learned that night, it's that you never really know someone until they betray you in the worst way possible. And when they do, you better be ready to fight back. After I found out about the house sale and the affair, everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smirk, her lies, Jake's stupid face. I started questioning everything, our marriage, my judgment, even my own sanity. How did I not see this coming? How did I miss all the signs? The more I thought about it, the more I realized she had been planning her escape for months, maybe even longer. I didn't want to just confront her again. I wanted to hit her where it hurt. That's when I started planning my revenge. I knew Emily was a bitchy, manipulative woman, but I also knew she loved money and control. If I wanted her to feel some of what I felt, I had to be smart about it. I started by digging into her financial records, bank statements, emails, texts. I wanted to understand exactly how she was funneling money, hiding assets, and planning her move. I also hired a private investigator to gather evidence of her dealings, just in case I needed it later. She kept up the act, pretending everything was normal. She'd come home late, act like she was just taking a break from the stress, and throw her bitchy comments my way about how I was overreacting. But I saw right through her. I knew she was selling the house, secretly talking to buyers and planning her new life without me. The worst part was that she was lying so effortlessly, as if her lies were her armor. She told everyone she was just tired, that I was paranoid, that I was stalking her. I couldn't stand her lies anymore. One night I decided enough was enough. I sat her down and I laid everything out: her affair, the house sale, the secret accounts I'd uncovered. Her reaction was classic Emily, defensive, bitchy, trying to gaslight me. She said I was crazy, that I was just jealous and insecure, that she was only with Jake because I wasn't satisfying her anymore. She even had the nerve to say I was stealing from her, that I'd drained our joint account of $200, $0. I almost lost it. I told her I had proof of her selling the house, and I had the evidence of her affair. She looked furious, then started crying fake tears and calling me abusive for accusing her of everything. But I wasn't about to let her spin this story. I knew her too well. She was a master manipulator, but I'd caught her in her lies now, and I wasn't going to back down. I told her I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, that she was going to face the consequences of her actions. I told her I'd take her to court, freeze her accounts, and make sure she paid for what she did. I was furious, more furious than I'd ever been in my life. That night I stayed up again, planning the next steps. I contacted a lawyer, told him everything I knew, and started gathering evidence for a divorce. I also made sure to record her conversations and take screenshots of her texts. If she thought she was going to leave me high and dry, she was mistaken. I was going to fight for what was mine: my money, my house, my dignity. And I was going to make sure she paid for her betrayal. In the days that followed, she grew more frantic. She tried to manipulate me, guilt-trip me, even threaten me with lies about how I'd ruin her life. But I was done playing her game. I was ready. I knew her secrets now, and I was going to use them. I set up cameras in the house, kept detailed records of everything she did. I wanted her to know I was serious. I was not going to let her walk away with my life, my money, or my reputation. All I could think about was how much I'd trusted her, how I had given her everything: my love, my loyalty, my savings, and how she repaid me with lies, betrayal, and greed. I felt a mix of heartbreak and rage. I wondered how someone could be so selfish, so manipulative. I knew I had to be smart, because Emily was dangerous when cornered. But I also knew I couldn't let her win, not without a fight. The more I uncovered about Emily's scheming, the more my blood boiled. It wasn't just the affair or the secret sale of the house. It was the way she had been planning her escape while pretending everything was fine. I found emails, dozens of them, between her and the real estate agent, discussing the sale price, staging the house, and even talking about how she would split the proceeds. She had been living a double life, secretly lining her pockets while I was clueless, working my ass off to keep everything afloat. I started realizing how much she had manipulated me over the years. She always played the victim, made me out to be the bad guy whenever I questioned her. But now I saw her for what she really was: greedy, selfish, and willing to destroy everything we built just to get her way. The house was her biggest prize, and she was willing to burn the whole thing down to get her hands on the money. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I had trusted her with my life, and she'd been plotting against me all along. I decided I needed to hit her where it hurt: her ego, her pride, her sense of control. I started by freezing all her accounts, making her realize I wasn't joking. I also contacted the bank and put a hold on any unusual transactions. I wanted her to know I was serious about stopping her from taking everything. Meanwhile, I kept gathering evidence, photos, recordings, emails, to prepare for the inevitable legal battle. I wanted her to know I had her cornered. One night she came home furious, yelling at me about how I was ruining her life, how I was accusing her of everything, and how she'd ruin me in return. She threatened to expose me, to ruin my reputation if I didn't back off, but I'd already anticipated her moves. I had everything recorded. I had witnesses. I knew her game. I told her flat out that I was done playing her games, that she was going to face the consequences of her actions. She sneered at me, calling me paranoid, jealous, and a jealous man who can't handle his wife having a life. That's when I decided I'd get a lawyer involved and start the divorce process. I knew it wouldn't be easy. Emily was cunning and she'd fight dirty, but I was prepared. I wanted her out of my life, out of my house, and I wanted her to pay for what she'd done. I also told her I'd be taking her to court over the sale of the house, the hidden accounts, and the affair. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Meanwhile, I kept my distance, watching her every move. I set up hidden cameras, recorded her conversations, and kept track of her attempts to manipulate me. She tried to guilt-trip me, cry, scream, and even threaten me with her bitchy attitude, anything to get her way, but I stayed firm. I knew she was dangerous when cornered, and I refused to let her control the situation anymore. I was angry, yes, but I was also calm and methodical. I knew I had the upper hand and I was going to use it. Deep down, I felt betrayed beyond words. I'd invested a decade of my life into this woman, and she had repaid me with lies, sex with Jake, and a secret plan to walk away with everything. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let her get so far ahead of me, but now it was about fighting back, about making sure she paid the price for her treachery. I knew that once everything was out in the open, there would be no going back, and honestly, I was ready for that. I was tired of being the fool, tired of feeling like I'd been played. It was time for her to face the consequences. The days that followed felt like a war zone. I was constantly on edge, watching her every move, making sure she didn't slip up or try to hide anything else. I'd already gathered enough evidence to bury her in a courtroom if it came to that. But what surprised me most was how she kept digging herself deeper into her lies. She'd come home, act innocent, then slip into her bitchy attitude when I pressed her about the house sale or her secret accounts. One evening, she was particularly aggressive. She stormed into the living room, screaming about how I was ruining her life, how I was jealous and paranoid, and how she'd make sure I paid for accusing her of everything. Her face was red, her tone shrill, and her eyes burning with fury. I just sat there, calm but firm. I told her that I'd had enough of her lies, that I knew about the sale, the affair, and her secret money stash. I told her she could keep playing her games, but I was done. I was going to take her to court, and she wouldn't get away with it. She sneered at me, then started crying fake tears, trying to manipulate me again. That's when I decided to step up my game. I pulled out all the stops, showed her the evidence I had collected, played her recorded conversations, and told her I was prepared to go to court and expose everything. I even told her I had hired a private investigator to follow her, just to make sure I had everything on record. Her face twisted into a mixture of rage and desperation. She yelled that I was crazy, that I was stalking her, and that I'd regret this. But I knew I had her cornered. I also contacted a divorce attorney and explained everything. We drafted a plan to freeze her assets, get a court order to stop her from selling the house, and ensure she couldn't hide any more money. I told her I'd be fighting for full custody of our kid, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate the situation anymore. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I wasn't backing down. Meanwhile, I kept watching her every move. I set up hidden cameras around the house, recorded her calls, and kept detailed notes of her attempts to manipulate or threaten me. She tried everything, calling me a jealous psycho, trying to guilt-trip me, even throwing around accusations that I'd stolen money from her. But I had the evidence to prove the opposite. I knew she was trying to make herself look innocent, but I could see through her lies. One night, I caught her trying to access our joint bank account from her phone. I had already put a freeze on it, but I wanted to see what she was up to. She was trying to transfer money, probably to hide it or move it somewhere she thought I wouldn't find. I snapped a screenshot and immediately called my lawyer. That was the last straw. She was trying to take everything and leave me with nothing. I knew I had to act fast. I confronted her the next morning, showing her the evidence. I told her I was done playing her game, that I was filing for divorce and seeking full custody. I told her that I'd also be suing her for fraudulent activity, selling our house without my knowledge, hiding assets, and trying to steal from me. Her face went pale and she started screaming, calling me crazy, possessive, and a jealous bastard. I just looked at her and said, "You've lied and manipulated for long enough. This ends now." The worst part was seeing her crack under pressure. Her bitchy attitude dissolved into pure rage and desperation. She knew she'd lost control and that scared her. I could see her realizing that I wasn't going to let her get away with her schemes anymore, that I had all the leverage. It was a feeling of cold satisfaction mixed with heartbreak. I'd trusted her for so long, and now I was fighting to keep what was rightfully mine. My dignity, my house, my money, and my child's future. The game was on and I was ready to win. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I had all my evidence lined up. My lawyer filed for divorce, citing her infidelity, the secret house sale, and the financial fraud. Emily, of course, fought back hard. She tried to spin everything, claiming I was a jealous, controlling husband who was trying to ruin her reputation. She even hired her own lawyer, which dragged things out more than I wanted. But I had everything: screenshots, recordings, bank statements, and witness statements from the private investigator. I was confident I'd win, and I made sure she knew it. In the meantime, Emily's behavior got worse. She was desperate, I could tell. She started showing up at the house unannounced, trying to guilt me into dropping the case or giving her another chance. She told me she loved me, that she was sorry, that she'd change. But I knew better. I'd seen her true face now: selfish, manipulative, and completely out of control. I kept my distance, refused to get caught up in her tears or her lies. I told her to stop wasting her breath and that everything was heading to court. The biggest shock came when I discovered she was still secretly selling the house, trying to finalize the deal behind my back. I found out through a real estate agent I had contacted to get an update. She'd been pushing to close the sale for weeks, trying to get as much money as possible before I could stop her. I confronted her with the evidence, and her reaction was classic Emily: denial, anger, and a lot of blame shifting. She called me possessive and paranoid, then threw a tantrum about how I was ruining her life. I just looked at her and told her she was done, that she'd lost her right to manipulate me. The court date was set for a few weeks later. I was nervous but confident. I had everything I needed to prove her lies, her fraud, and her betrayal. I also hired a forensic accountant to track down any hidden assets or accounts she'd set up. I wanted to make sure she didn't walk away with a penny more than she deserved. When the day finally came, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. I was ready to finally put an end to her schemes and reclaim what was mine. During the hearing, Emily tried every trick in the book, crying, yelling, trying to sway the judge with her bitchy attitude. But I stayed composed. I presented my evidence, answered questions calmly, and let her see that I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. The judge listened carefully and in the end awarded me full custody of our kid, froze her assets, and ordered her to pay back the money she'd stolen through the house sale and fraudulent accounts. It was a decisive victory, but it didn't erase the pain of betrayal. As I walked out of the courtroom that day, I felt a strange sense of closure. I knew this wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about trust, respect, and the fact that I'd been blindsided by someone I loved. Emily lost everything: her marriage, her control, her manipulative games. And I realized I'd learned a lot. Trust is fragile, and when someone proves they're willing to lie, cheat, and steal, you have to stand up and fight back. I won't say I'm completely over it. There's still a sting, a feeling of betrayal that lingers, but I'm moving forward, rebuilding my life and making sure I never get played like that again. The biggest lesson I learned: never ignore the small signs, never let someone manipulate your trust, and always fight for what's rightfully yours, no matter how much they try to lie or spin their way out of it. Because in the end, honesty and integrity are what matter most. And if someone can't give you that, then they don't deserve your life. Walking out of the courtroom that day, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted, but at the same time, I knew I'd carry the scars of everything that happened. Emily's betrayal hit deep, more than I ever thought possible. It's strange how someone you trust can turn into a complete stranger overnight. I kept telling myself I was lucky to have caught her when I did, but honestly, the trust was shattered beyond repair. Still, I was grateful that I had played my cards right, that I'd fought for my rights and didn't let her manipulate me into giving her a free pass. In the weeks that followed, I started focusing on rebuilding my life. I cut all ties. With Emily, I changed my phone number, cut off her access to my accounts, and moved forward without looking back. It wasn't easy. There were nights I questioned everything, nights I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again. But I had my son, and he became my anchor. Seeing him smile, knowing I was doing this all for him, kept me going. I realized that my biggest victory wasn't just winning the court case. It was reclaiming my own sense of stability and dignity. I also took time to reflect on everything I'd learned from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, yes, but it's something you have to protect fiercely. Never ignore the small signs of trouble because they often lead to the bigger problems. And when someone shows you they're capable of lying, cheating, and stealing from you, especially someone you loved, you have to be prepared to stand your ground. You can't let them manipulate or control your life. That's how they win, and I refuse to be a victim any longer. Now I focus on my son, my career, and rebuilding the parts of my life that mattered. I've also become more cautious about who I trust and how I handle my money. No more blind faith, just careful, measured steps. I've learned that revenge isn't about hurting someone else. It's about taking back your power and making sure they can't hurt you anymore. Looking back, I see the whole thing as a harsh lesson in resilience. I was blindsided, yes, but I fought through it. I learned that no matter how deep the betrayal, you can find a way out if you're willing to be honest with yourself and stand your ground. I hope my story serves as a warning to anyone out there who might be in a similar situation. Trust is precious, but it's also something you have to earn, and when it's broken, sometimes the only way forward is to walk away, rebuild, and never look back. Life goes on, and I'm finally learning to live it on my own terms.